And so, the one that stood out or stands out as one that's the biggest challenge, I think, is shared values. So, making sure that you have a clear culture and understanding of what it is you want your business and culture to be in the future. Then I'd say another one that I really would say is probably tied for first is the one that's related to business processes, and I'm drawing a blank on what they change it to something that starts with an S. But it's essentially talking about your processes and not your technical systems, but more your the way your operations work. And that's one where leaders oftentimes will downplay that, or they'll just delegate that to the project team. And it's really important for leadership to have a clear definition of, this is what we want our process to be. Now, you could certainly get input from your team and you want to ask input from your team, but at the end of the day, you have to have a little bit of top down, like, this is what it is and this is what we want to accomplish. And then the team then has that clarity to help figure out how exactly we're going to accomplish that with the overall transformation. So any sort of change initiative, I think, should be heavily leaning on the McKinsey 7S model, because it's such a simple thing, but it's a good reminder to think outside the box and not just look one dimensionally at technology. It forces you to look at the people and process sides of things, the strategy side of things, the shared values and culture, all the stuff that's really important to tie together into a cohesive change program.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. And I want to switch gears here and get into our first newsworthy article of the day. Today, we're kind of focusing on SMBs in both of our newsworthy articles. And then I know we'll get more into it later with Jordy and Nate. But today, to start, this first article talks about why SMBs should embrace bots. They say that there's a growing myth that automation is only for the enterprise giants, but that's quickly becoming just quickly getting disproven. Bots, especially those powered by AI, are now more accessible than ever, and small businesses are quietly adopting them to gain a serious edge. We're not just talking about like a website chatbot, but today's bots can handle internal tasks like automating payroll, streamlining onboarding, and managing back office operations. Tools like Microsoft Copilot and Salesforce Einstein are starting to serve the SMB market, helping lean teams do more with less. Here's what the article says is the most powerful. Automation doesn't replace human work, but it amplifies it. By offloading repetitive tasks, small teams can focus on strategy, customer experience, and innovation. And as AI becomes more intuitive and platforms offer plug and play automation tools, SMBs get in that early, are setting themselves up for being able to scale faster, stay lean, and compete in ways that simply weren't possible 5 years ago. So to start, Eric, the question really becomes, are small businesses really too small for bots, or are they actually ones that are going to see the most benefit from bots?
Well, I think that there's a lot of benefit that bots can bring to the table for any size company. And one of the things that I think is really interesting about AI is that it there's a term that's been thrown around in the industry that it democratizes technology for any size company. So you don't have to be a really large company to take advantage of bots. We even are starting to use bots in our company in terms of how we interact with people in our sales pipeline and in other ways. And we're looking at AI to automate a lot of our finance functions and things of that nature. So there's a lot of value in AI in that it's not just game changing in terms of what it can do potentially for organizations, but also just the fact that it's fairly and relatively cost effective, and you could do it at a lower risk in many ways than you could a big ERP system where you're completely ripping out the guts of your organization and changing it all, which is super painful. But I will say that the biggest risk of AI, in my opinion, is the collision between, or the intersection or collision, depending on how you look at it, between the technology itself and people. So people are going to be disrupted by AI and bots. And so making them part of that solution and helping figure out how AI and bots can be used within your smaller mid-sized company is really important. The technology, the tools are out there. If you're using Salesforce, or if you happen to be using even QuickBooks, or some more rudimentary technologies, I mean, they're all rolling out AI and bot sorts of capabilities, and so there's a lot of different ways you could be using it. I think it's just a matter of making sure you have a clear understanding of where the priorities are and where you want to focus to get started on AI, because it can be almost overwhelming as these vendors just throw out tons of functionality that you could be using with AI.
Yeah, absolutely. And what kind of internal processes are ideal then for automation, specifically in small businesses, in order to use bots?
Well, you mentioned payroll. That's a good one, because it's anything that's highly redundant and repetitive. Those are good ones for bots, because you could have the bots now manage those redundant and call it normal processes. But anytime there's something that looks out of the ordinary, or it's outside of a variation, or outside of a certain variance threshold, then you can flag it for human approval or involvement or whatever. But having said that, you still want AI, or you still want humans interacting with AI, and making sure that even on those more redundant, repetitive processes, that humans are providing the guidance and direction and oversight of the tool itself. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of things that small businesses could be using it for sure.
Yeah, that's a great point.